When you store data in S3, you can easily share it between multiple applications. However, each application may need a different view of the data. Instead of creating and maintaining ETL data processing pipelines to enrich or transform your data, you can simply create a Lambda function with your custom code. Each time the S3 object accessed via standard S3 API, Lambda will be invoked and transform your data. For example, you can dynamically resize images, redact confidential data, and much more. Let's start with a demo. First, we're gonna upload this file with the name of this YouTube video. We're gonna upload it to S3. Let's go to S3. That's the file inside that bucket, and we're gonna be using the object Lambda access points to access that file and transform it to make it uppercase. All letters will be uppercase. So let me show you the script that I'm gonna be running locally to access it. So the first part will access this file, title txt file directly. So no modification, no transformation, as is. And the second part will be, we're going to be accessing exactly the same file, title txt, but through that new feature introduced by AWS Object Lambda Access Points. And we're going to, instead of the bucket, we're going to use that access point and access that file. And file will be transformed, converted to uppercase. Right? And let me show you, let me run it, and you will see. So that's the title, the first part, as is. And then the second processed object, you can see that it was transformed to all uppercase letters. All right, let's get started. Source code you can find in the YouTube description, also instructions to this video. Well, first of all, let's go ahead and create S3 bucket. Let's go to AWS console and navigate to S3. All right, let's create the bucket, and the bucket has to be unique. So you should use something different than DevOps by example. And I'm going to be using the default region, US East 1, and I'm not going to change anything else. Let me click Create Bucket. All right, we have the bucket. Now let's go ahead and create the file with the text that we're going to be transforming. All right, let's create the file, title txt, and paste our title. It's just a random text that we're going to be transforming. Let me save it, and it says Introduction to Amazon S3 Object Lambda, etc. So we're going to transform with Lambda this text to uppercase. All right, and let's go ahead and upload this file to S3. Upload, and we can click Add Files. Then let's select our file and upload it. All right, we have the file. Now let's start with the Lambda. So let's create the Lambda function. First of all, let's create the folder, and we're gonna call it function. Then we're going to create the entry point to our function. So it's going to be app.py. All right, so it's going to be Python Lambda. And let me paste the source code. So we're going to be using the Bota3 package and requests. So first of all, we're going to accept the event, and let me show you how it's going to look like, this particular event. Here, the example of that event that we're going to be working with from S3 to that Lambda, and we can use some of those objects. For example, get object context, we're going to get the URL, some credentials, configurations, etc. So in this step, we're gonna just parse this object and get those variables. Then we're gonna create the response. That's gonna be the original object. So it's gonna be just a text. And then we're gonna transform and make it uppercase. And we will return it to the client. Transform object. All right, so it's pretty simple function. And now we also need to create the requirements txt file for our function, for those two packages. And keep in mind that that particular ability to write to that function, Python function, and especially this object, this method, is available on I think 1.17 and higher. So make sure that you're going to be using the version higher than this one or equal to this one. All right, so that's the requirements txt. And finally, we need to create the Docker file. Let's create the Docker file. And recently, Amazon introduced a new way to package Lambda functions using the Docker images. So we're going to be leveraging that method. And we're going to use the default Python image from AWS itself, from the public repository, and it's 3.8 version. Then we need to place our source code for our Lambda function and requirements to our directory. And also, this particular image comes with a Bota3 package already. So this part is very important, that you're going to install those requirements to this folder. Otherwise, you will get conflict. So, and then we're going to call our function. All right, and finally, let's go to the terminal and build our image for Lambda function. Docker build. Well, we need to navigate to function directory and build it from here. So we're gonna give it a name, and then that's gonna be the tag for that Lambda function. All right, we have the image. Now we need to create the ECR repository to upload our image. Let's go to AWS and search for ECR, and it's gonna be Elastic Container Registry. Let's click to repositories and create our repository. And let's create the S3 transform repository, which will be the private repository. And let's keep everything else. Create repository. All right, now we need to upload that local image that we created with the AWS Lambda function to ECR. And right now we don't have any users. So let's go ahead and first of all create IAM policy for that user, and then create the user and upload the image. Let's go to IAM. Go to policies. Well, you can place your user in admin group, or you can create very generic and with wide permissions, but I prefer to have restricted access for my users. So that's why I want to create the policy, the custom policy, and allow to upload only to one single ECR repository. Let's create a policy, go to JSON. And let me paste the policy itself. All right, so that's going to be the first statement will allow us to list images, and this is going to be our ECR repository name. Then this is your account, which you can get from here, and this is the region. For example, you can grab it from here. You need to replace it to your own. Then we're gonna allow the get authorization token, and this is important to be able to Docker login and then upload the image using Docker push command. Also, we're gonna allow all these actions like Docker pull push to be able to upload, and always we only specify one single repository, so that user will be restricted to only one single repository to work with. All right, click next. And let's click next review and give it a name S3 transform ECR access. All right, now let's go ahead and create the IAM group. And let's attach our policy to that group. And also we need user. Let's go to users, add user, and let's give it only programmatic access. And let's place it to developers group. Create user, and we need to download our credentials. All right, now let's go ahead and configure AWS CLI locally to be able to upload images. Let's go to download folder, and that's going to be our credentials. Let me run AWS configure, and let's create the default profile for AWS CLI. It's going to be our key, and this is the secret region format. All right. And now we can go ahead and upload the image. And if you don't know how to upload images, you can go to ECR again. You can navigate to your ECR repository and click on view push commands. And first of all, you need to use this first command to authenticate your Docker client. Let me copy this and run it in my terminal. All right, login succeeded. Now, well, we already built our image, and we need to tag it and upload it. Let me tag our image first. That's the first image, and that's going to be the tag. And then let's upload it. Docker push, and let's use this image to push it. All right, we uploaded the image. Now let's go ahead and create the custom policy and role for our Lambda function. Let's go back to AWS console and go to IAM. Go to policies, and let's paste JSON. All right, so this Lambda function will get access to the log group, and also this part is very important. It will get access to S3 object Lambda. So otherwise you will not be able to access the S3. So all those three statements have to be here. All right, let's create it. And let's call it S3 transform Lambda policy. And also let's go ahead and create the role that we're gonna assign to our Lambda function. We're gonna select the Lambda as the subject and attach our policy. And let's call it S3 transform Lambda. All right, now it's time to create the Lambda itself. Lambda. Let's click create function. And we're gonna select container image. Let's give it a name, S3 transform, and select our image. And also it's very important that we're gonna select our role that we just created. Use existing role, and let's select S3 transform Lambda role and create function. All right, so Lambda will be created in a few seconds. And the next step is to create object Lambda access point. Let's wait just to verify that it's going to be, we're not going to get any errors at this point. All right, so it's ready. Let's go back to S3. And let's create the access point first. And we're going to be using this access point in our Lambda. Create access point. Let's call it transform. Let's select our bucket. And it's just a way how to delete, well, it's just a way of managing the data access to certain objects and certain users. And well, let's select our bucket, and then here you can select either you can access this access point from the VPC or from internet. So I'm gonna be doing from my laptop, so I need internet here. I'm not gonna define any policies here. So let me create access point. And also let's go ahead and create another access point, object Lambda access points. And let's create one. Let's call it title transform. And here let's select our access point. Let's also select our Lambda S3 transform. We're going to be using the latest. And also I'm not going to enable anything here additional, so as is, and I'm going to click create object Lambda access point. All right, so we're almost done. Now to test it out, let's create the Python script locally. Let's create the file main.py. Let me close this. Here we're gonna import Bota3 package, then we're gonna initialize S3, and two things. The first part, we're gonna access that file directly and using the bucket, and this is the file name, object name in that bucket. And here we're gonna access exactly the same file, but through that particular Lambda. So here, this is just the bucket name, and this RN, let me show you. This particular one comes from here. So if you go to select your access point for Lambda, and under properties, you can find your Amazon resource name for that access point. So that's the one, right? Now let's run the script, and it will return the original text and then transform text. And before we can do that, let's go ahead and create the Python virtual environment. Let's activate it and install our Bota3 package. All right. And now let's try to run the script. And we're gonna get access denied, of course. So since we don't have any permissions to access S3 bucket even. All right, so to fix that, let's go back to IAM. Right now, our user only has permission to access ECR repository. And let's go ahead and create additional policy. Create policy, JSON. All right, so here the first statement will be access list bucket, our bucket. Then the second statement is to put and get objects and delete objects from that bucket. Here we're gonna grant access to the access point. And this is not the S3 access point. Well, it's not the Lambda access point. That's the first access point that we created. You have to have this access. And then, well, obviously you need to update your account numbers and regions as well. So this is the first access point from S3. Maybe let me show you where it is. Go to S3. And that's the access point. This is the first access point here. Then this is the second access point, which is S3 object Lambda. And this is actually the second object. So we're gonna grant access to our user to access this access point as well. So we need both. And finally, we need to grant our user to access to invoke the Lambda function. So this is mandatory as well. This is the Lambda. However, we're not even invoking this function directly, but we need to grant this user access. All right, let's create and let's call it S3 transform S3 access. And let's create the policy. And let's go to the groups and attach this policy to our developers group. Attach. Let's search for that and attach that policy. All right, so our group developers has two policies attached, ECR and S3 access. All right, and now we can try it again. Let's try to run the main py. And here you go. So finally, we can get the object directly from S3. This is as is. And this is transform object from the same bucket, exactly same file, but transform with our Lambda. And also you can navigate to CloudWatch and you can find the logs for that particular function. Log groups. And that's going to be the log group and log stream. Here you go. All right. Thank you for watching. And if you think it's helpful, please subscribe to my channel and like this video. It really helps.